it's Mrs. McKelvy back with chapter 6 of The Princess and the Goblin. But before we start to read, let's think about where we left off in the story yesterday. Yesterday, the princess and her nurse, Ludi, had been out for a walk when they had a break in the rain. And that was your challenge for yesterday's reading, to go out and to take a nature walk. Well, it ended up that yesterday was a lot like happened in the story, and it rained a whole lot yesterday. So you might not have gotten to take your nature walk. So maybe you can take a nature walk another day this week. Anyway, the princess and her nurse had gone out for a walk after the rain finally cleared away. And they were so happy to be outside, they stayed and stayed and stayed. And then the nurse realized how late it was, that the sun was setting and that the princess would be out after dark. And the nurse began to run with the princess. And she realized that they had gotten lost. So let's pick up and find out what happens next. We've taken the wrong turn somewhere, and I don't know where we are. We are lost. The terror the nurse was in had quite bewildered the princess. It was true enough they had lost their way. They had been running down into a little valley in which there was no house to be seen. Now Irene did not know what good reason there was for her nurse's terror, for the servants all had strict orders never to mention the goblins to her. But it was very distressing to see her nurse in such a fright. Before, however, she had time to grow thoroughly alarmed like the nurse, she heard the sound of whistling, and that revived her. Presently, she saw a boy coming up the road from the valley to meet them. He was the whistler, but before they met, his whistling changed to singing. And this is something like what he sang. Ring, dood, bang, go the hammers clang, hit, turn, and bore, whiz and puff and roar. Thus we rive the rocks, force the goblin locks, see the shining ore. 1, 2, 3, bright as gold can be. 4, 5, 6, shovels, matlocks, picks. 7, 8, 9, light your lamp at mine. 10, 11, 12, loosely hold the helve. We're merry miner boys, make the goblins hold their noise. I wish you would hold your noise, said the nurse rudely, for the very word goblin at such a time and in such a place made her tremble. It would bring the goblins upon them to a certainty, she thought, to defy them in that way. But whether the boy heard her or not, he did not stop his singing. 13, 14, 15, this is worth the sifting. 16, 17, 18, there's a match and lay it in. 19, 20, goblins in a plenty. Do be quiet, cried the nurse in a whispered shriek. But the boy, who was now close at hand, still went on. Hush, scush, scurry, there you go in a hurry. Gobble, gobble, goblin, there you go a-wobblin'. Hobble, hobble, hobblin'. Cobble, cobble, cobblin', hob-bob, goblin, ha! There, said the boy, as he stood still opposite them. There, that'll do for them. They can't bear singing, and they can't stand that song. They can't sing themselves, for they have no more voice than a crow, and they don't like other people to sing. The boy was dressed in a miner's dress, with a curious cap on his head. He was a very nice-looking boy, with eyes as dark as the mines in which he worked, and as sparkling as the crystals in their rocks. He was about 12 years old. His face was almost too pale for beauty, which came from his being so little in the open air and the sunlight. For even vegetables grown in the dark are white. But he looked happy, merry indeed, perhaps at the thought of having routed the goblins, and his bearing as he stood before them had nothing clownish or rude about it. I saw them, he went on, as I came up, and I'm very glad I did. I knew they were after somebody, but I couldn't see who it was. They won't touch you as long as I'm with you. Why, who are you? Asked the nurse, offended at the freedom with which he spoke to them. I'm Peter's son. Who's Peter? Peter the miner. I don't know him. I'm his son, though. And why should the goblins mind you, pray? Because I don't mind them. I'm used to them. What difference does that make? If you're not afraid of them, they're afraid of you. I'm not afraid of them, that's all. But that's all that's wanted. Up here, that is. It's a different story down there. They won't always mind that song even down there. And if anyone sings it, they stand grinning at him awfully. And if he gets frightened and messes up a word or says something wrong, don't they give it to him. What do they do to him? Asked Irene with a trembling voice. Don't go frightening the princess, said the nurse. The princess, repeated the little miner, taking off his curious cap. I beg your pardon, but you oughtn't to be out so late. Everybody knows that's against the law. Yes, indeed it is, said the nurse, beginning to cry again, and I shall have to suffer for it. But what does that matter, said the boy. It must be your fault. It is the princess who will suffer for it. I hope they didn't hear you call her the princess. If they did, they're sure to know her again. They're awfully sharp. Ludi, cried the princess, take me home. Don't go on like that, said the nurse to the boy, almost fiercely. How can I help it? I lost my way. You shouldn't have been out so late. You wouldn't have lost your way if you hadn't been frightened, said the boy. Come along, I'll soon set you right again. Shall I carry your little highness? Impertinence, murmured the nurse. But she did not say it loudly, for she thought if she made him angry, he might take his revenge by telling someone belonging to the house, and then it would be sure to come to the king's ears. No, thank you, said Irene. I can walk very well, though I can't run as fast as Nursey. If you will give me one hand, Ludi will give me another, and then I shall get along famously. They soon had her between them, holding a hand each. Now, let's run, said the nurse. No, no, said the little miner. That's the worst thing you can do. If you hadn't run before, you would not have lost your way. And if you run now, they will be after you in a moment. I don't want to run, said Irene. You don't think of me, said the nurse. Yes, I do, Ludi. The boy says they won't touch us if we don't run. Yes, but if they know at the house that I've kept you out so late, I shall be fired, and that would break my heart. Fired, Ludi? Who would fire you? Your papa, child. Well, I will tell him it was all my fault, and you know it was, Ludi. He won't mind that. I'm sure he won't. Then I'll cry, and I'll go down on my knees to him, and I'll beg him not to take away my own dear Ludi. The nurse was comforted at hearing this and said no more. They went on, walking pretty fast, but taking care not to run a step. I want to talk to you, said Irene to the little miner, but it's so awkward. I don't know your name. My name is Curdy, little princess. What a funny name, Curdy. What more? Curdy Peterson. What's your name, please? Irene. What more? I don't know what more. What more is my name, Ludi? Princesses haven't got more than one name. They don't need it. Oh, then, Curdy, you must just call me Irene and no more. No, indeed, said the nurse indignantly. He shall do no such thing. What shall he call me then, Ludi? Your Royal Highness. My Royal Highness? No, no, Ludi, I won't be called names. I don't like them. You told me once yourself it's only rude children that call names, and I'm sure Curdy wouldn't be rude. Curdy, my name's Irene. Well, Irene, said Curdy with a glance at the nurse, which showed he enjoyed teasing her. It is very kind of you to let me call you anything. I like your name very much. He expected the nurse to interfere again, but he soon saw that she was too frightened to speak. She was staring at something a few yards before them in the middle of the path, where it narrowed between rocks so that only one person could pass at a time. It's so much kinder of you to take us out of your way to take us home, said Irene. I'm not going out of my way yet, said Curdy. It's on the other side of those rocks that my path turns off to my father's. You wouldn't think of leaving us till we're safe at home, I'm sure. Of course not, said Curdy. You dear, good, kind Curdy, I will give you a kiss when we get home, said the princess. The nurse gave her a great pull by the hand she held, but at that instant, the something in the middle of the way, which had looked like a great lump of earth brought down by the rain, began to move. One after another, it shot out 4 long things, like 2 arms and 2 legs, but it was now too dark to tell what they were. The nurse began to tremble from head to foot. Irene clasped Curdy's hand yet harder, and Curdy began to sing again. 1, 2, hit and hew, 3, 4, blast and bore, 5, 6, there's a fix, 7, 8, hold them straight, 9, 10, head again, hurry, scurry, bother, smother, there's a toad in the road, smash it, squash it, fry it, dry it, you're another, up and off, there's enough, ha! As he uttered the last words, Curdy let go of his companion and rushed at the thing in the road as if he would trample it under his feet. The thing gave a great spring and ran straight up one of the rocks like a huge spider. Curdy turned back laughing and took Irene's hand again. She grasped it very tightly, but said nothing until they had passed the rocks. A few yards more and she found herself on a part of the road she knew, and was able to speak again. You know, Curdy, I don't quite like your song. It sounds to me rather rude, she said. Well, perhaps it is, answered Curdy. I never thought of that. It's a way we have. We do it because they don't like it. Who don't like it? The gobs, as we call them. Don't, said the nurse. Why not, said Curdy. I beg you won't. Please don't. Well, if you ask me that way, of course I won't, although I don't know a bit why. Look, there are the lights of your great house down below. You'll be at home in 5 minutes now. Nothing more happened. They reached home in safety. Nobody had missed them or even known they had gone out, and they arrived at the door belonging to their part of the house without anyone seeing them. The nurse was rushing in with a hurried and not over-gracious good night to Curdy, but the princess pulled her hand from hers and was just throwing her arms around Curdy's neck when the nurse caught her again and dragged her away. Ludi, Ludi, I promised a kiss, cried Irene. A princess mustn't give kisses. It's not at all proper, said Ludi. But I promised, said the princess. There's no occasion. He's only a minor boy. He's a good boy and a brave boy, and he has been very kind to us. Ludi, Ludi, I promised. Then you shouldn't have promised. Ludi, I promised him a kiss. Your Royal Highness, said Ludi, suddenly grown very respectful, must come in directly. Nurse, a princess must not break her word, said Irene, drawing herself up and standing stock still. Ludi did not know which the king might count the worst, to let the princess be out after sunset or to let her kiss a miner boy. She did not know that being a gentleman, as many kings have been, he would have counted neither of them the worse. However much he might have disliked his daughter to kiss the miner boy, he would not have had her break her word for all the goblins in creation. But, as I say, the nurse was not lady enough to understand this, so she was in a great difficulty. For if she insisted, someone might hear the princess cry and run to see, and then all would come out. But here Curdie came again to the rescue. Never mind, Princess Irene, he said. You mustn't kiss me tonight, but you shan't break your word. I will come another time. You may be sure I will. Oh, thank you, Curdie, said the princess, and she stopped crying. Good night, Irene. Good night, Ludi, said Curdie, and turned and was out of sight in a moment. I should like to see him, muttered the nurse, as she carried the princess to the nursery. You will see him, said Irene. You may be sure Curdie will keep his word. He's sure to come again. I should like to see him, repeated the nurse, and said no more. She did not want to open a new cause of strife with the princess by saying more plainly what she meant. Glad enough that she had succeeded both in getting home unseen and in keeping the princess from kissing the miner's boy, she resolved to watch her far better in the future. Her carelessness had already doubled the danger she was in. Formerly, the goblins were her only fear. Now she had to protect her charge from Curdie as well. Well, that was a really exciting ending to the chapter. Thank goodness Curdie came along with his song and was able to protect them from the goblins. And that's the challenge I'd like to give you for today. Curdie was making up the song as he went in order to sing and to scare those goblins away. So your challenge for today's reading is to make up a song that you think might keep goblins and spooky things away. I would love to get to hear your song, and I hope that you will write those words down in your book. You can make up your own tune, or you might even take the tune of another song that you already know and write different words for it. Whichever way you do, I hope you have a great time writing a song that will scare the goblins away. Well, until next time, bye-bye.